You're on.
Good evening. This is the December 21st, 2016 meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. We are at the Guilford Community Center on Church Street in Guilford, Connecticut. Thank you all for attending this evening. I think you're all pretty familiar with the rules of procedure, so I'm going to kind of skip by those. The bottom line is that if you're here to represent an application or to ask questions, you'll be willing to be able to do that. And in some cases, decisions will be made tonight, and in some cases that won't. And in any case, the decisions that we make are available at the town hall the next day after 9:30 in the morning. And anything we do is you can appeal to the Superior Court of the State of Connecticut. Tonight, let's see, do I have you go first? No, I'll do.
Introduce us.
Sitting tonight are George Underhill, Alan Brown, Rick Myers over there, Dick Wallace, Tom Cost, Ray Bauer, Rich Meyer, Frank DeAndrea. Also with us are Reggie Reed and Lisa Brewer and videographer Peter Schultz. All right, would you please read the call of minutes?
Notice is hereby given that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on December 21st, 2016, 7:30 p.m. at the Nathaniel B. Green Community Center, 32 Church Street, Guilford, Connecticut, the Mononkatuk Room on the second floor for the following purposes. Kenneth and Tony Nowak, 140 Neck Road, map 25, lot 5A, zone R6, coastal area management to place boulders for erosion control, section 273-91. Branford Jewelers, 2772 Boston Post Road, map 83, lot 25, Zone R8, zoning amendment request to amend TS3 zoning to residential density of 5 units per acre. Copies of these applications are available for inspection at the office of the Planning and Zoning Commission, Town Hall South, 50 Boston Street, Guilford, Connecticut. At this hearing, persons may attend and be heard, and written communications will be received. Dated at Guilford, Connecticut, the 30th day of November, 2016. Tom Cost, Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, first up is Denise Shepard, 50 Howard Drive, map 32, lot 34, zone R3, special permit application for an accessory apartment. This is the second mandatory public hearing.
Tom, I got to be off on this one. I was not here at the last meeting, and I didn't get a chance to see the video.
Okay, so you're going to sit.
I'll have to just sit down on
Okay.
this one.
Okay, ma'am, go ahead. Nice to see you again.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Denise Shepard from 50 Howard Drive, and I'm here for a special permit for an accessory apartment, and this is my second mandatory hearing.
Okay.
Has there been any changes, No?
No,
Everything's the
I
same?
spoke to my neighbors, and you had asked me to get a couple letters, so I have 2 letters from 2 of my other neighbors.
For the record, we have a letter from is that Ruth Welsh?
Yes,
And she lives at
I think it's 49.
49? So she lives at
Howard
49
Drive.
Howard Drive.
Yes.
And then we also have one from Vincent Barback, also saying, I have no objections to this application. These are both dated the 21st of December,
Yes,
and he also lives as a neighbor of yours. Is that
Yes.
correct? Right?
on River Street.
We have a letter here from,
Okay, and we have a couple letters to read into the record.
I have one from Dennis Johnson, Director of Health, dated December 6, 2016. Subject Denise Shepard, 50 Howard Drive, map 32, lot 34. The recent enlargement of the applicant's septic system to 4-bedroom capacity will accommodate the increased bedroom count created by the proposed apartment addition. It is recommended that the applicant's proposed special permit for creation of an accessory apartment be approved.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay. So any of the commissioners have any additional questions about this application?
We mailed all the neighbors, right?
Yes,
And
11 letters.
we had no complaints from any of the neighbors at any time?
No? George?
Good, perfect. I'm good.
There's the certified slips of the neighbors that were notified.
Good.
Okay. No questions from the committee?
Almost
Yeah,
set.
I had a question. I was wondering if the accessory property is for a rental unit or personal use?
It's for personal use at this time for my mother.
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions from the audience? Anybody here to speak in favor or against this application? Hearing none,
Motion to close public hearing.
second. All those in favor of closing this portion of the public hearing, say aye.
All right.
Okay, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Next one up is Kenneth and Tony Nowak, 140 Neck Road, map 25, lot 5A, zone R6, coastal area management, to place boulders for erosion control, controlled by 273-91 of our code for regulations.
Oh, good.
Sir, introduce yourself.
Okay, my name is Vincent Amore. I'm an architect in Guilford, and my client, Ken Nowak, was unfortunately not able to be here this evening. He's recuperating from some flu or something, so we're going to have to try to answer your questions without him here.
Good. I don't need the floor. Stay away.
Go ahead.
Okay, the main objective, well, I have a photograph, and I don't know if anybody, if you go out to the site or not, but this is the scene.
Could you turn it a little bit? John?
Yes, sure.
Good. That's good. That's good.
Okay.
Thank you.
This is a one view that's shot parallel to the seawall that exists there, okay? And this shows some of the erosion that is all over the site from rain and spray or whatever, and it's impossible to walk on, okay? I mean, it's like you're guaranteed to break an ankle if you get across. So what we've done, again, I'm going to go back to this drawing. What we have done is made a proposal where we're purchasing granite slabs from Stony Creek Quarry, and these are kind of unique slabs. They're sort of like a remnant from the main slabs that they cut out of the mountain, and they're the leftover pieces that the stones go to the developer who's going to cut them up. But these slabs end up about 12 to 14 to 16 inches thick. They're in the neighborhood of maybe 5.5, 6 feet in general square, but nothing specific. And they weigh in the neighborhood of 1.5 tons to 2 tons. And so we're going to be using that kind of material set in a bed of gravel. And and since these stones are at different thicknesses, we're going to set up a laser transit so that we can, after we lay this bed level, we can either take gravel away or add gravel to get the achieved level of that surface. And so these would be very stable and because of their weight and size. And we're very fortunate to be able to buy that kind of stone. And then there's a few rubble stone that we're going to put along this property line and a couple in this area here. And then the balance is going to be done in 1.5 inch crushed stone, which is not great to walk on either, but it's a lot better than what we have here. And that should, minimize the amount of erosion that takes place on this site. And that's our fundamental reason for doing this. And also this will give some protection to the existing sewage system, which is here, which is in somewhat of a vulnerable location. So, and then again, if you look at if you go to the site, you'll see that the previous owner, who was deceased, did quite a nice job in landscaping the front and controlling the erosion because of the plantings he put there. There are no plantings in this area, and therefore the erosion just went on. And that's our concept, and that's what we're trying to do. Now, I met with Jim Portley prior to doing this layout and discussed what we're trying to do, and he came up with a number of constructive comments, which we incorporated into the scheme. So I think that having I don't know whether he's seen this drawing or not since we submitted it to the town, but I'm sure that it incorporated most of what he wanted to do, if not all of it, and we certainly are able to adjust it if he so desires. And I'm going to introduce you to Tom, our surveyor, and he will answer any of your technical questions as to elevations and survey data that you might want.
I'm not sure if it would be you or Tom, but the state seems to feel that you need to get a permit before you proceed with this. Is that your bailiwick?
You want to answer that?
Okay,
If I get hit, at least I get on base.
Okay.
all right. I mean, if you want to present something first and then answer, that's fine,
Well,
to
the other thing
set the
I'll say in
stage.
advance is that this, we had no idea that they were going to, they want, and he's going to explain in detail, they want us to take out a permit for the original seawall, which was probably built maybe 50 years ago. For what reason we have to take a permit out for that, that was, they say, never taken out, I don't know. And my client, when he bought this piece, had no idea that there was no permit on that wall. He's going to explain it.
All right.
For the record, my name is Tom Stevens. I'm a professional engineer and land surveyor. My office is at 141 Durham Road in Madison. I'm here with Vincent to make the presentation. I'm here to explain the marriage that we're going to enter into with the state regarding the retaining wall. Also, early on, Vincent argued with me that this was not a beach. It's not a beach. Kevin McGee and I spent a lot of time on the phone the last couple of days, and it's not Hammonasset Beach. Actually, in the coastal resources, I'd like to enter it as an exhibit. What the beach actually is called out on coastal resources as a modified beach and dune.
Tom, can you orient me, where is this on this road?
It's just over the Guilford town line, past the boat launch. You have to come all through Madison, up through that
Right.
road.
So is it on the west side or the east side of the road going down to the boat launch?
It's on the south side of the road. It's opposite side of the boat launch road.
Right. Oh, well, there's a beach opposite the boat launch, so is it to the...
It's west of that. It's west,
Oh, so-
3 houses west of that beach.
Next to the really new...
From the launch area to the west side.
It's more south than west. It's on the southwest side of the road. The USGS map that I just passed out, what it shows is the area. I didn't make copies for everybody, but it shows the modified beach. It shows Circle Beach itself, and it shows our property. The other comment with Kevin McGee yesterday, his letter is part of your file. He suggested to me that the description of the project on the CAM application he thought was brief, and he asked me to flesh it out. So the letter I submit with that is dated this date, and I say Part 2A should be amended as follows. The original CAM application, it said placing of boulders for erosion control. I'd like to replace that statement with the activity consists of placing thick-cut flat stones behind an existing seawall and along adjacent properties, and placement of crushed stone between the flat stones and the existing home for safe walking and to enhance pedestrian access. The flat stones and crushed stone will be set level at the approximate existing grade, which is well below the top of the seawall. There is no intent to shore up or alter the existing seawall. There will be no increase or decrease in impervious cover. There will be no change in use of the property. Construction will commence upon obtaining local approval and a certificate of permission, a COP, from the DEEP for the existing seawall. The bone of contention with Carol Zanansky at the state was, I don't want to look at any proposed activity on the lot itself. You don't have a permit for the seawall. Many of the properties don't have permits. I remember Irene and Sandy, people were allowed to go replace the seawall without a permit and then go back and get permits after the fact. That was to not hold them up for 3 to 6 months. Their letter, there's a change in administration at the state level, and their letter is not going to comment on this application until such time as they have a COP. we're not opposed to that. I wanted to make that public in my letter that we intend to get the COP before any of this local approval construction starts. So the seawall will be approved. It's an administrative exercise. It's expensive. It's a lot of field work. It's a lot of plans, but it's not that it's not going to be approved. It just has not received approval yet.
Is she saying, in your opinion, that she's not going to rule on this at all until you do get the permit for the seawall? In other words, she hasn't reached the merits of the current application.
She won't comment on the current application without
Okay.
their kick it.
So if we if we give you local approval tonight, we won't have the benefit of her input on the application before us
That's
tonight.
correct. That's correct. They're of the opinion that that what we're doing is shoring up the seawall. Our intent is to absolutely not touch it, so this wouldn't happen.
Okay.
So everything we're doing is landward of the seawall. Actually, the letter she wrote was before our modified plan. She said, I have two different plans. I have Vincent's plan, which is the top sheet, and we got the Stevens plan, which showed existing conditions with no proposed conditions. Would you please put them all on one plan? We did that, but her letter was written November 29th. Our revisions, I think, were made on 12/9. So she hasn't reviewed even this plan. We've talked to her. She has in the record her letter, which we acknowledge. There's also an email from her in the record, which we acknowledge. And with my letter, I wanted to just reiterate, number one, the beaches aren't just natural beaches. They're modified beaches. They've been modified since at least 1965. And I wanted to acknowledge publicly that we don't intend to go anywhere without the COP.
Well, let me ask you this from our perspective. Why wouldn't we want to wait until she gives you that approval and then rules on the merits of the application before we move forward with this at the local level?
I think if, for her to work on this, to evaluate the COP, we're going to be into the $5,000 or $6,000. And if she decided, well, you know what, I don't think you should touch anything landward, you should just stick with the wall, then we would be wasting our time for the local approval. And we wouldn't come here. If we didn't know we could get this approval.
Okay, so, I mean, the other thing she does say is if the commission chooses to approve this application, you should state on the record its reasons for causing adverse impacts to and despoilation of the existing beach area. I would think you don't agree that this is going to...
I misled her, and
Okay.
I'm guilty. I said beach everywhere on the plans. Vincent said, Tom, it's not a beach. I said, well, it's the best I have. Of course, today's date, I looked harder, and it's a modified beach, and nobody would argue that.
Okay.
But she's not acknowledging that it's not a pristine beach.
I think Kevin has offered some advice to you on this subject as well. You have his memo? Okay.
His memo's spot on.
His memo was dated today. If I could read it in.
Yep, sure.
From Kevin McGee, Environmental Planner, Reason Coastal Area Management Review, Kenneth M. and Tony Nowak, 140 Neck Road, Guilford, Connecticut, Assessors Map 25, Lot 5A. The applicant is proposing to place large flat rocks at grade level against the existing seawall and proposes to place gravel between the existing house and the seawall in an area already covered by rock. The application has been preliminary reviewed by Carol Szymanski at Connecticut Deep, who is concerned that the work is being conducted adjacent to a seawall not permitted by the Connecticut DEEP and feels that work will impact the existing on-site beach. The beach area noted on Thomas Stevens and Associates map is a notation taken from a regional coastal resource map. The portion of the property identified as beach in which the work is proposed to occur in has been disconnected from Long Island Sound since at least 1965, as documented by an aerial photograph submitted by Thomas Stevens. Since the construction of the seawall, the natural functions of the beach system, which is to preserve the natural dynamic relationships between littoral sediment sources and dispositional areas, has been disrupted. Based on the long-term disconnect between the beach area and Long Island Sound, the proposed work has a minimal impact on the coastal resources. Since the last letter from Carol Samansky on November 29, 2016, a revised plan has been submitted to DEEP by Thomas Stevens and Associates, addressing her concerns regarding the location of the coastal jurisdiction line, CJL. The application has demonstrated that the seawall that the rocks are being constructed against has been in place since 1965, is protecting a pre-1995 residence, which is allowed by the Coastal Management Act. A request was made for a revised letter from the Connecticut DEEP with updated comments since the receipt of the revised Thomas A. Stevens and Associates plan. In an email that's dated December 20th, 2016, Carol Samansky indicated that they will not be providing a revised letter due to her concerns with the existing seawall. As part of the approval, the applicant should be notified that they should contact the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection regarding the permitting of the existing area seawall. I guess we lost the last page.
Would you be okay if we made a condition of the approval, if it's approved, that you do go to DEP and get that?
Absolutely.
Okay, then I'm all set. All right.
Just to get this on the record, see the coastal jurisdiction line, the high tide line and the mean high water are all shown here on the colored version of these maps. The three lines, the coastal jurisdictional line, the mean high water, and the mean sea level lines. What's in there on these maps is what's called beaches, should be called modified beaches. But I wanted to make that permanent via my letter.
Other questions? Go ahead.
This is the second time I've seen this. I was on the zoning board of appeals when that originally came through. And I'm here again, and I know this particular piece of property. I was there. I've been there twice. This stone wall that you're talking about, it's huge stones that are out in front of this property, right in front of the water. You're going to put a trench, from what I see here, on the other side of stone wall, that's going to absorb water that's coming over the wall. Is that what those are for?
That's also to maintain the level of the large stones that are being placed.
Yeah, but what's this for? This is to absorb water that's coming over the stone wall, isn't it? Why would you have build these stones up over here?
That's just to make it level. It will absorb the water, absolutely. It'll be totally porous. You want to leave that out and just start the stones?
Well, we had discussed that with Jim Portley on the job, and he thought that was the logical thing to do. Since that's a void, it's going to actually act like a gutter, and we're just filling that in. If you want us to take that out, we'll take it out.
No, I'm not, I'm asking you what you're doing. I'm just
Well,
trying.
that's the whole function of it, is to develop a relatively flat plane right to the wall. And again, this is a 12-inch rise, so there would be a step between the gravel area, which is in this area here, and the stones that we're putting on. This is a very harsh area, you have to, and since you've been there, you know that.
You don't have any beach there.
No, there's no beach there.
There is no beach there.
And
It's
that's
all-
why you
it's
see
all big stones.
such rugged terrain, and what we're trying to do is put some order into it and make it, that area is totally useless to my client as far as walking on it and functioning
No,
as it is.
I'm not an engineer, I'm not an architect, so I'm going to tell you how to do anything, but the house next to you on the left,
Yes.
just put a cement wall in, all the way across.
Yeah,
His property.
that just went in, and we were not conscious of that at all. It's not on our drawings because we didn't,
All right,
wasn't there when we did our drawings.
Okay.
Yeah, why he put that there is a good question.
Well, I think it was a smart move, because
Well, it was an expensive, smart move.
it's your house.
No, I don't,
All right.
I don't
Putting that-
criticize him. I'm just saying he takes a lot of money to do that.
All right, well, putting the wall there, it made sense to me,
It
because
does.
it's going to stop the erosion from the water coming up
Yes.
underneath where your side is going to have the rocks. The rocks have space in between them. It's going to come up in between, and I think that, and again, I'm not an engineer, but I see that still having erosion there, even though you put those rocks there, and you put this section you have here, I still see what is
See,
going to be
you're
erosion.
talking about this particular area right here.
Yeah.
And that wall is.
I'm
right
talking
there.
about right in here, after you put your stones up
Yes.
against that,
Yes.
that, what they call a wall, which
Yeah.
isn't a wall, it's a bunch of stones,
Right.
big, huge stones put over here. And on this side over here, where I was just saying about your neighbor, you can see there's erosion there right now where the water, if you get a serious storm, is gonna come up, it's gonna erode on that side.
Well,
I
I
mean,
think you're absolutely right. That's going to occur. In fact, if you looked at this is a new seawall approved by DEP. It is very different than the wall that is here. This is a ramp condition. They require a ramp. They don't allow you to build a vertical wall any longer. And the whole object of that is when the sea is churning and
It's
it's
the wall.
pounding, it'll slide up this, it's going to slide right up this ramp. It's going to run right across the property and end up in the road. And we know that because it's already happened. So there's no perfect solution to dealing with the sea, and even when you follow DEP's total determination as to how to do it, it doesn't solve the problem either. It's just too harsh an area. All we're trying to do is make this a somewhat usable piece of land. And the fact that we're going to put these stones and gravel isn't going to make it worse. It's got to make it better. But that's our intent.
You use it for what, sir?
I'm sorry?
I'm saying you did that so they could use it. Use it for what?
Well,
It's not
like
a
any
beach, you're
ba-
not gonna be swimming around in it.
No, but you have a backyard. You can't walk on this damn thing.
I walked across the lot, I timed myself at 30 seconds, and it's treacherous.
Oh, you can't walk across it now.
I mean, it's actually a hazard, and we're trying to get rid of this
I
hazard.
thought that Yale was examining all our shoreline. I was wondering if they affect you at all.
What's that?
The people from Yale University.
Walking, no, it doesn't.
They-
Why-
no, they're
That's a
doing-
legal right.
They're working on that because they understand if we don't do something pretty soon about our shoreline, in a few years, 20 years maybe, we won't have one.
That's very possible.
I would suggest with the stone that was pointed out that this will be going to the DEP for the COP. If they have an issue with it, then it changes it, then we share that with this commission. So
Okay.
if you didn't do it outside of your knowledge.
Yeah.
That's good.
All right, any more questions from the commission? Any questions from the floor? Any comments? Hearing none, would someone make a motion?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye. Okay. Next up is Branford Jewelers zoning amendment, request to amend TS3 zone to residential density from 4 units to 5 units per acre. First public hearing to be, and this is the first public hearing, and this will be continued to January 4th.
Can you angle that a little bit? Oh, yeah, great. Now I can see it. Better.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Tony Thompson from Plans Ahead. I'm representing Mr. Steinberg for this proposal. I think you guys have seen this before when it was initially 2772 Boston Post Road, when there was a restaurant, a mixed-use development proposed with a restaurant below, apartments above. Turned out that the site plan, the costs were a little more than we would want to spend on it. So we've kind of reeled it back in, and we're proposing a 10-unit apartment building, very rural in character, an apartment building that requires a lot less soil disruption, impervious surface, disruption of the area in general. It's an approved use in that area. What we're looking for is an increase in the density that's allowed here from 4 units per acre to 5. That's the general request here. We're meeting and fulfilling all the other requirements in this TS3 zone. The general tenor of this is to kind of mimic rural buildings in the area. This is a project that I did nearby. And the units are something that's in demand right now. They're going to be 10 one-bedroom, 10 units. The lower 5 are going to be accessible units, ADA-compliant units. In tandem with the reduced requirements for the parking, initially with the initial proposal that was approved, there were 54 parking spaces required. If you do the formula for the requirements for this, there's 15 parking spaces. So from 54 to 15, we're certainly going to look at providing a couple more overflow spaces for guests and company. But again, we've more than halved the requirements. In tandem with that allowance is a big reduction in the sensitive areas on the site. So just to orient you, Boston Post Road, Moose Hill Road, the original proposal that you guys again have reviewed, it was exactly here where it is. We've increased the footprint a little bit, but in tandem with that, these green hatch areas, again, this is all wetlands, and that will remain green. I've just highlighted the areas that we kind of get to pull back the impervious surfaces and stick with grass and less disruption of the sensitive areas around the wetlands. Again, in tandem with that, and my ideas are, is to try to get, and again, this is part of the requirements and regulations, try to minimize the impact of the parking on the site. So the ADA spots, the ones with the zebras and the stripes and the required posted signage, we're going to steer to the back of the building. So, all of these elements are designed, and take the parking off the sides of the building, so it doesn't look like a strip mall or an apartment building at all. We would preserve the parking approved along the street side, and again, buffer that with some hardscaping, some landscaping, and again, the required ADA spots with, again, the things that I find kind of tipping your hand towards a commercial project is, again, just all the requirements. The signs for the ADA now have to be posted high so a plow doesn't bury them. There's what we call those zebras. So the intent is, when you're driving by this building, and again, I drive through here quite a bit, does this look like an old farmhouse that might have been renovated? We're going to do some period correct details. I'm even looking into mining some of the columns from local buildings. There's Watchtower Antiques right up the street. I've been popping in and out of there. So I think with what I'm talking about is some sensitive landscaping, a lot less soil disruption, a heck of a lot less impervious surface, asphalt. One other thing is we're seeing if we can preserve the curb cut that's there right now. The initial proposal, again, because of all the increased parking, was steering the traffic, again, mostly for the restaurant, out further down Moose Hill Road. Again, unfortunately, Moose Hill Road is a one-way street that way, so we are still going to have two ways of in and, egress in and out of the lot. But in tandem with preserving the initial curb cut, rolling back all this requirement, this is the sensitive wetlands area, the flagged areas. We hope to really minimize the disruption of that area. And again, create, part of the requirements for this area. And we did meet with the West End Committee, and there's a letter on record, I do believe, that they're in general favor of this. You can review that letter. Is to kind of look like it was always there. Some of the details, crown heads, columns, brackets, full returns. Again, this is a federal-style building, a colonial federal farmhouse. Even the grill patterns on those windows up in the gables are generally very distinctive, and I hope to mimic those. In tandem with that is the landscaping. Portions of stone walls, people kind of think it's silly, but I want to even create a stone wall on the corner and maybe even push the edge of it over a little bit, just like all the other stone walls in this area. So I think, with some attention to detail, we're hoping to do a little more. I wouldn't call it upscale, but I'd call it a very desirable apartment building. ADA accessible, roll-in showers, big bedrooms, accessible kitchens. So, I do a lot of these. In general, there's a requirement of a minimum of a percentage of ADA accessible units on a project. We're looking for 50% of ADA compliance in a building like this, which is would really be a great benefit, I think, to the town. And again, we're hoping to not fit them up like a hospital room. There's ways to make these ADA units very regular. They would be wheelchair accessible, more than usual. It's of someone in a walker, a cane, some with other impairments, and not, not wheelchair bound, although again, this is a nice level lot. It would be an accessible ramp, a very minimal ramp to get into the units on the lower level. And again, so each unit is about 850 square feet.
I mean, it's nice to hear all this, but it's not really a site plan. This is a zone change application, right?
Correct.
Okay, so so why do you need to go from 4 to 5 dwelling units per acre?
It's to make the project a little more affordable.
Okay. Now, that's why you can't get a variance, right? Because there's no legal hardship. It's a financial
Correct.
hardship. Okay. George, the letter that we got from Chris Widmer says dwelling units not to exceed 5 units per acre and 5,000 square feet per acre. What does that mean? Does that mean that per acre is not supposed to be more than 5,000 square feet of living space? So if you have 5 apartments, they can each be 1,000 feet, or? I'm trying to understand what that means.
Total, I think he means, I'm not totally sure.
Yeah.
I think he means total building area on a per acre basis. So in this case, this site is 2 acres, so that would mean that the total building could not be any larger than 10,000 square feet. I think that's what he's suggesting here, but that's not actually part of the petition before you. The petition before you, and let me, maybe I can, before you read that letter, maybe I can show you something here that might be helpful. This is the zoning map of the area. You'll recall that a year or so ago, on the recommendation of the Route 1 West Planning Committee, this area that I'm highlighting here, west of the TS2 zone, which is the main commercial strip along the Boston Post Road frontage, this area was rezoned in a kind of a comprehensive way as part of the Route 1 West Committee. 2 things were done. We created this overlay zone, which is shown in the green crosshatch area here, which is an overlay on existing residential zoning. And then we expanded the commercial zoning to include the TS3 zone, which in part resulted from converting some existing residential zoning along the south side of the Boston Post Road, and also resulted in, was the result of changing several properties, including Mr. Steinberg's property, from CD to TS3. You remember we had one property owner who did not want to be part of that rezoning from CD to TS3, and that's this kind of large piece in the center here that you see in this magenta color. So this proposal is to amend the text of the TS3 zone from the 4 units per acre allowance to the 5 units per acre allowance. So technically that would affect all of these properties that are in the TS3 zone today. Practically speaking, it'll probably only affect the single parcel that's before us right now, because just to the east of those are 2 parcels that are currently in the process of being planned for other uses. That's the former Broadway Mason site, and then the residence behind it. The CD zone would not be affected by this change. There are some small parcels on the frontage here that are developed in single-family homes, and then the larger part of TS3 over on the east side here is the Anatra property, which is mostly developed in the new commercial residential development. I can't remember what it's called exactly, but that property is pretty much totally developed. There's some large single-family homes that are being built in the back there now. So the proposed change would affect the TS3 zone, and most specifically, it would affect the so-called Montana property.
What's the address on that property?
Montana?
2772
Okay.
on Boston Post Road.
Boston Post Road?
Now, this proposal was reviewed by the Route 1 West Committee on 2 separate occasions, and that's the result of that. That's the letter that you have from them. I'm going to read it right now.
Yeah, we're into the record, right?
This is dated December 14th. Members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, request to amend the zoning criteria for the TS3 zone to allow an increase of residential density to 5 units per acre. Dear Commission members, at our meeting on December 8th, 2016, the Route 1 West Planning Committee reviewed and discussed the above application. In developing the criteria for the TS3 zone and pursuant to its final report submitted to the Commission in 2015, the committee's intent in establishing the 4-unit per acre residential limit was to limit development density and maintain an open rural aesthetic in this particular zone. Having reviewed the plans presented by Mr. Steinberg, given the relatively small size of the apartment units and overall buildings proposed, the committee felt that its recommendations would be met by the plan development and are generally supportive of the request. The committee realizes that if approved, the new limit for residential density will increase to 5 units per acre. In an effort to preserve the original intent of the TS3 criteria established by the committee, would recommend the Commission consider substituting dwelling units not to exceed 5 units per acre and 5,000 square foot per acre under permitted uses, A subsection 1.
George, are any of Vicar Doctor's properties TS3?
Yes, that's what I was alluding to.
Gatehouse
Yeah,
West?
then I,
That complex.
Gatehouse West?
Gatehouse West.
yeah,
that's
then
right.
I have to recuse myself from this because he's
Client.
the client, so
That's
I'm off on this one.
That's in the TS3 zone, that Gatehouse West complex.
Okay.
That's the bigger kind of TS3
Magenta.
blob over on the east side of this property.
Okay, so I'm off
I
on
think
one
this is
then.
the letter to the record.
So,
Yeah,
in
let
terms
me
of,
just-
in
if I-
terms of
if I
their,
may have further explanation, let me just comment on, as you know, we have 3 TS zones. We have TS, we have TS2, and now as a result of this recent creation, we have a TS3 zone. The logic of the 4 units per acre was, I think, based on the kind of a descending density. TS zone allows 8 units per acre. TS2 allows 6 units per acre. The committee, in its deliberation, thinking that TS3 was going to be a little bit lower density than the other 2, resolved for the 4 units per acre. And now this proposal is to change that to 5 in order to make this project more feasible.
so the, given the fact that the Route 1 West Committee also recommended no more than 5,000 square feet per acre, this meets that, this particular project, the way it's now sitting here, would meet that?
The project that was described, I believe it does, yes.
Yes, so I've got a question.
Sure.
So if we approve 5 per acre, he can change his plan any way he wants. We're not talking about that building. We're talking about changing our zoning regulation to allow 5 units per acre with a 5,000 maximum per acre building. And he could change his plan at any time. We're not doing a site approval.
That's correct. Correct.
All right, just so long as, I hope Route 1 West realizes that we're not approving this building, but we're in fact changing the density of development, and he could at any time change his building and his drawings. And of course, you would have to come back here, but you would then have under your belt 5 per acre approval.
That's right.
Okay.
I think that the committee felt that, definitely felt that. I think they also, not to speak for them too much, but then the chairman's not here, they're also seeing and thinking about the recent history of this particular property. You recall it was originally proposed as a propane facility, which the neighborhood was keenly not interested in. Then Mr. Steinberg came involved, and the proposed use was the restaurant residential combination. I think the committee was very much supportive of that. As you know, the Planning and Zoning Commission approved it. I think the committee is, and if you know the state of the property right now, it's a burned-out, dwelling unit. I think the Route 1 West Committee is interested in facilitating what they perceive to be a quality development, one that fits with the character of the area as they've talked about it in their plan. Now, there's no guarantee, of course, that this plan will actually move forward, as Mr. Meyer said, but clearly the committee is hoping that something like this will happen here.
So can I go one step further? And correct me, I hope I'm understanding what we're talking about correctly. So with this beautiful building that's presented to us, and we're all thinking this is great, we would be saying yes to 5 for your property, and you effectively could change that when you come back with your site plan and have something different, but you already have 5. But we'd also be changing 5 to 5 for all of TS3. That might include other properties that might get developed, that certain members are.
I think that's correct, but I think George also represented that most of the other properties are already substantially developed.
That fact was also discussed by the commission. Of course, there's no guarantee that, that the plans that are sort of in play with regard to the Broadway Mason and the residential lot next to it, and the plans that have been developed so far by Anatra, those things could change for sure. But the committee is cognizant of the fact that the recommendation would apply to all property in the TS3 zone. And they're also aware that this development, while desired, is quite possibly not going to happen. This applicant, as you discussed, would have to come back, if the zoning were changed, would have to come back with their plan, which would be subject to the normal process, wetlands, design review, site plan review.
Was this all residential? And there were all those units, 800 square feet?
They're about 800 feet.
Taking 4,000 square feet.
Some of them push in, push out, it kind of broke it up a little.
All right.
About 850
Let's
square
kind of stick to the issue, which is the changing the density. Is what we're really talking about here. Forget what the building looks like right now, because they have to come back for that. Right? Am I right?
That's right.
Okay. Okay.
This is subject to a second hearing.
Right.
Anybody else?
Is there anybody in the audience that would like to ask questions about this application? At this point?
I have one other statement.
Sure.
I'll make it real quick. I would hope that Route 1 West would understand that while they may be looking at a beautiful structure on the corner lot that needs to get developed, what we're saying yes to is much more than that, and can be applied to other areas, and you need to understand all the ramifications of that. And as long as they're going to come back and have an opportunity in a couple of weeks to voice any concerns they may have, if they don't voice any concerns, I would, of course, support this.
Okay. Anybody in the audience want to make a comment at this point? Brian McGlone?
If I can just add a couple of comments to this. And Rich, you're right. This is kind of a proposed building, but it is the focus on density, 4 to 5, with that limitation of 5,000 square feet an acre. If you look at the rest of the zone, which is also allowed, for example, offices, new office buildings could be in this zone up to 10,000 square feet. Lodging could be in here not to exceed 15 rooms. Retail stores up to 10,000 feet, a single store or a combination not to exceed 15,000 square feet. Schools and daycares not to exceed 10,000. So when we were having the conversations with the Route 1 West Committee, we were looking at the alternatives that could go in there. And frankly, most felt those alternatives probably would be more, aggressive is not the right word, but more used, more traffic in and out, more congestion possibly. So I think when they were kind of comparing this density request for a housing application, I think they, in comparison, and granted, tomorrow they could build one of these other buildings, they're allowed, but at least they were trying to compare the two and say, well, it's probably a less rigorous use And it was another way they looked at it to support their recommendation. And as Tony highlighted a couple of things, I mean, lot area coverage, right now is 25% or 20,000 square feet. Floor area not to exceed 40% would be a 32,000 square foot building. I mean, so we're still way below those kinds of uses. And then he pointed out the impervious surface is, I don't know exactly, it's a third less or so compared to what could have gone in there, was proposed earlier when it was the restaurant and apartment combinations. So, you know, we're supporting and asking for the density change based on those additional comments.
This is all new construction, is that correct? Yeah. I said it's all new construction.
Yes, this is new construction, George.
Anybody else have a comment at this point or questions? Okay. Someone move that we.
We'll move and continue this to
Second.
January 4th.
So this is continued to January 4th for second public hearing. Okay, let's vote on this. All in favor, say aye.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay, deliberation of public, I got to approve the revised agenda.
So moved?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, deliberation of public hearing items. Let's go to,
Shepherd.
let's do Shepherd.
I make a motion.
Go ahead.
We voted that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission approve a special permit for accessory apartment Denise Shepherd, 50 Howard Drive, map 32, lot 34, is shown on an application dated 11/4/2016. This application is approved with the following commission, that is, finding that it conforms with the zoning code, and the special permit is effective December 30th, 2016, upon filing with the town clerk.
Second.
Okay, for the record, Ray is off for this.
I am off as well.
Shepherd?
Okay. So there's 4 of us, 5 of us, so we're all still okay. Discussion about this? Any discussion?
This was pretty straightforward.
Are there any concerns that I'm not getting?
No,
This
I
is,
don't think so.
there's nothing here.
Okay, so in hearing no further comments, let's vote on this. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So we had 5 voting and 2 recusals. Okay, the next up is,
Okay, I'll make a motion that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission approve a CAM application for Kenneth and Tony Nowak, 140 Neck Road, map 25, lot 5A. As shown in an application dated November 10, 2016, and plot plan, Mr. and Mrs. Kenneth Nowak, dated November 9, 2016, prepared by Vincent Amore, architect. This application is approved with the following condition, that the applicant contact DEP and obtain a permit for the existing seawall. This application is approved based upon a finding that it conforms with the zoning code and is consistent with the coastal management policies of the state of Connecticut.
Second.
You reference in that approval the other drawing that I think we just received tonight from Shep, from,
Okay, this is the drawing,
Whoever it
140
was.
Neck Road, Guilford, Ms. Amore, and
and
Thomas
the
A. Stevens
Thomas Stevens
Associates.
drawing, yes, right,
Okay.
excuse me.
Just that, I did, I just,
You did
that condition
incorporate
that they get the permission, contact DEP and get the permission for it. Okay, and right, we'll include in this a reference to the map drawn by Thomas A. Stevens related to this application.
okay, any questions or comments from the committee?
The only thing I'm concerned about is if there are any changes that the DEP would require or that may affect our approval. What happens?
They have to come back with a revise. If they revise it, then they have to come back to get your.
And get a CAM approval again. That's what we put Kevin's thing, right?
And I know it goes without saying, but sometimes when things go without saying, there will be a architect and surveyor saying where to put the stones, right?
I'm sorry?
There will be an architect and surveyor saying where to put the stones, right?
We will direct the construction, yes, I will.
Good. And the reason I say that is the house, the lot 2 doors down, managed to put the stones 5 feet out past their borders and out onto the streetway.
This site was heavily surveyed,
Yeah.
and the The markers are all in place, so there's no reason for us to exceed it.
Yeah, I'm real familiar with this lot.
Okay.
I'm good.
Okay. Yep. Call for a vote on this. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and the last one is?
That's it.
That's it. Okay, we're in the subdivisions. Up is William McKay, 144 Nortontown Road, map 82, lot 8, zone R8, two-lot subdivision.
Hello, good evening. My name's Greg Fettis with Fettis Engineering, with office at 70 Essex Street, Mystic, Connecticut, representing William McKay. So it's an 18-acre parcel. We're splitting off 2 acres. We're in the R8, but we have the ability per your regs to split off 2 parcels at the R7 zone. Previously, there was a lot split off in this in the southwest corner. We're splitting a lot off in the northeast corner along Nortontown Road. This parcel is just a bit north of the intersection of Opening Hill and Nortontown. So this is a blow-up of that corner of the property. It's basically a 2-acre parcel, just kind of carved right out of the corner. There's a wetland that splits the 18-acre parcel in half. We received, on our site walk, we received wetland approval for the actual location of the wetlands, and the other evening, I think there's probably a letter in the file regarding the wetland approval for the subdivision. And I also believe there's a letter from Dennis Johnson maybe in the file regarding
Kevin McGee.
and Kevin McGee too? Okay. I haven't seen any of them, so. But if there's any questions, it's pretty straightforward. It's basically cutting out 2-acre parcels.
This one is in the record. From Kevin McGee, Reason Subdivision, William McKay, 144 Nortontown Road, Guilford, Connecticut, Assessor Map 73, Lot 10. This is dated yesterday, December 20th. At its inland wetlands meeting on December 14th, the Guilford Inland Wetlands took the following action. Voted that the Guilford Inland Wetlands Commission refers favorably to the Planning and Zoning Commission the subdivision shown on map titled Overall Subdivision Map of 144 Nortontown Road, Guilford, Connecticut. Sheet 1, Record Subdivision Map 144 Nortontown Road, Guilford, Connecticut. Sheet 2, Side and Grading Plan of 144 Nortontown Road, page 3, and Soil Erosion and Sediment Control Plan of 144 Nortontown Road, Guilford, Connecticut, page 4. Prepared by Fetus Engineering LLC, dated October 10th, 2016.
Anything else?
I didn't see any from Dennis in the file
No.
unless I missed it, but I'm sure you did soil testing and there's
Yes.
a place for a septic system.
Yes.
Okay. Is it? I didn't.
Yeah, there
unless I
is. I
missed
just gave it to Greg.
Well,
Oh,
you
okay.
actually gave me 2 copies of Kevin's.
Oh, okay.
Oh, all
Well, we
right.
should probably just read it in the record
Sorry
to
about that.
make it complete.
I can get it tomorrow.
I guess we didn't get a letter from Dennis.
Okay.
I'm sure, I know that we've discussed this as staff. I know that a lot of all the tests have been appropriately
It's a
done.
buildable lot, and has septic
Yes,
system.
absolutely.
Okay.
All right.
Stood by those test pits.
Someone want to read a motion?
Sure. Voted that the Guilford Planning Zoning Commission approve a 2-lot subdivision for William McKay, 144 Nortontown Road, map 82, lot 8, as shown on overall subdivision of 144 Nortontown Road, record subdivision map of 144 Nortontown Road, site and grading plan, and the soil erosion and sedimentation control plan, all of the above prepared by Fettis Engineering dated October 10, 2016. This application is approved based upon a finding that it conforms with the zoning and subdivision codes of the town of Guilford.
All pretty straightforward.
Yep.
Okay, ready? Everybody ready to vote?
Yep.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. Next is a site plan. This is Metro 800 LLC, 800 Boston Post Road, map 47, lot 22, zone TS and R3. Site plan revision, building a minor architectural modification. Receive and take action.
Okay, I'll make a motion to receive it.
Second, someone second?
Second.
In favor, say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Robert Smith from Metro Star Properties. I'm the managing member of Metro 800 LLC, the owner of 800 Boston Post Road. We have a slight architectural elevation change we want to show you tonight. We'd like to be able to rotate this building 180 degrees. It's the exact same footprint as was approved. Drop this down. The only substantial difference is this little piece, this little square of building used to be in the rear, and now it's in the front. It just swapped. The footprint's exactly the same. Every zoning control metric is exactly the same as previously presented, but we did have an architectural change because of that bump being relocated. We did go to the design review committee and receive their approval, and we're here tonight to hear from you. And this is our architect, John Wicko, to present the change.
Thanks. My office is at 50 Broad Street in Milford. We're concerned with the rotation that we didn't end up with two buildings that looked identical. So worked with the design review committee and came up with this elevation. This is what was approved, which had the two strong gables, and in the center, we reworked the roof lines to create the same two gables in the center, but we also have this hip portion of it. So this is really the substantial difference between the front elevation, and they deemed this version to be acceptable, and they liked it, and that's really the only impact that we have on the post road, which is the most important one. We also have the rear, just for your understanding, this was approved. This was a larger section, which is the front of building number 1, and this is the proposed, as approved by the design review committee also. So it's really all the same components, and it's identical. Just rotated.
I did see, though, there's another site plan application to be received. Is that related to this one or totally?
That is not. That's
Okay.
that's building number 3,
All right.
which is being in review.
Okay.
Separate application.
Fair enough. This is just on the one that's,
Same property.
right, just a different
May I-
application.
So all you're saying, this is an architectural, it's a slight design change, the footprint's exactly the same, the actual square feet?
Right, everything's exactly the same.
Setbacks, all are conforming. They're identical to what was approved. It's about 180 degrees.
Not changing any elevation or anything?
Nothing.
That's right.
Okay.
Tear out the old foundation you poured already?
Nope.
Using the same foundation?
Yep.
Kind of locks it
Sure,
in.
I'll make a motion, vote that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission approve the site plan revision for Metro 800 LLC, 800 Boston Post Road, map 47, lot 22, for modification to Building 1 as shown on Patriot Medical Park layout plan prepared by TPA Design Group, dated December 19, 2016, and a medical office buildings, proposed Building 1, 3 sheets, dated April 17, 2016, revised to 12/21/2016. This application is approved based upon a finding that it conforms with the zoning code.
Second.
Minor,
Very minor, same footprint, just really reversing it around, so I'm fine with it.
Anybody else have any other questions or comments?
I'm good.
Okay, all in favor of this, vote
Aye.
aye. Anybody disapprove? Okay, moving forward then, thank you.
Thank you.
Applications to be received, special permits, MAC Management LLC, map 73, lot 10, zone I2 and R5, special permit to locate parking closer than 75 feet from the R5 zone line. Site plan revision to locate a public utility substation in an I-2 zone, 273-79 and 273-97. Receive and set public hearing date.
Do we have a date, George? Yeah.
Have we determined that? What the
It's
date's
right
going to
here.
be? What?
Mac management, no, we don't have it. Just a moment, I'll tell you. Get the calendar up.
That'd be the first Wednesday in February?
Yes, 2/1 is the first Wednesday in February.
2/1?
Yeah.
Okay.
2/1/17.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first public hearing on this would be February 1st, 2017.
Second. Oh, I'm sorry.
We could do it on January 20th,
Actually, it's 18th.
whatever.
January 18th
Yeah,
and
right away.
2/1.
Yeah.
You have to have two.
Wait a minute.
The zone change, pardon me, Audrey Jackson here, the zone change has to be heard first.
Right. Didn't we already set a date for that?
Well, that was going to be January 18th.
Oh, okay.
We haven't set it.
All right. Yes, let's go back. February 1st for the hearing on the special permit.
That's it.
Sorry, excuse me for the confusion there.
Thank you for the clarification. So, okay, so this is going to be on 2/1/17. Any questions? All in favor of receiving this?
Just 1 second. The zone change, we have to have 2 hearings on that, so we'll be hearing.
No, not a zoning map amendment. Only zoning text amendments require 2 hearings.
Okay, so it's just the map.
For some whatever
All right.
weird reason, that's why we.
Fair enough. Okay, I'm all set with the 2/1.
Okay, all in favor?
Second.
Right, but we don't have to worry about that.
Just raise your
Who
hand.
firsted it?
I don't know.
Rich?
Yeah.
Okay. Can we have a vote on this now?
Are we ready yet?
Yes, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Up again, Metro 800 LLC, 800 Boston Post Road, map 47, lot 22, zone TS and R3, site plan revision, add additional medical office, retail building, and parking.
When are we going to do that?
This is the building number 3.
This is for the Wetland
Yeah, so-
Commission, so you have to wait until they vote on it, so January 18th?
This is not a public hearing, so you don't have to schedule anything.
Why don't we could just receive it,
Yes.
and then
Just
when they
receive
get
it and
approval,
take
they can
action
come in.
on the
Yeah.
18th of January.
Okay.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay. Map zoning amendments, zoning map amendments, MAC Management LLC. Okay.
Make a
Two,
motion to receive it and hear it on January 18th.
Second.
all in favor, say aye. Aye.
I got something to say in that first.
What?
Go ahead.
I've had the opportunity to go out there and look at this because we reviewed this last week at the last meeting, and it was kind of an uproar. So trying to understand it from what they were saying and not actually seeing the property, I had an opportunity to go out and look at it today. And I think it'd be a good idea for anyone that hasn't gone out to see it, to go out and see it.
We're going to actually have a committee walk.
Yeah, you gotta walk it because there's a lot of things that you can't see on a map that you would see if you went out there. I think it's very important for us to get out there if we're gonna give insight in this thing.
What you're suggesting, I think it's correct, is not to suggest you go out there on your own, but we'll have an organized site visit, which we can coordinate the date with the property owners to make sure that, everybody's on the same page with that, but we'll schedule such a thing. And what I would like to hear from you is, obviously we want to do this in daylight hours. Do you have a preference for morning, late afternoon, evening? Late afternoon, early morning, weekend, during the week? What are your thoughts in that regard? I don't think it'll take a lot of time, but allocate at least a half an hour or so.
Well, I think it's really, there's people here that have jobs during the day, and, I defer to them because,
Can we do it on the weekend?
Usually we've done these like Saturday morning.
Do Saturday morning?
Seems to be the best time.
Okay.
Not this Saturday.
No, but it's
Not the next 2 Saturdays.
After the first of the year.
after the first of the year.
Maybe New Year's Eve.
So we'll get a date, and the committee's gonna be invited to go out together. And then we'll have the owners there, and we'll have
Non-snow day.
a non-snow day.
What about New
Right?
Year's Eve, Tom?
And this, is-
Isn't there,
Yeah.
we can't have too many,
Well,
because it's a meeting.
there's an
There
issue
will
with
be.
going on property without
Okay.
permission.
this will be a
Which means
continuation of the
everybody would
public
have to get
hearing.
permission.
Or
private
We'll, we'll
All right,
figure
I
that
just
out.
don't walk
making
on your
sure.
property.
Make sure that it's legal. The
That's
other
right.
thing I'd just make sure of everybody is that, you know, now that we have applications, you know, this is,
No more talking.
no
No
more
ex parte
ex parte
communications.
communication about this, you know, that sort of thing.
Okay. So we're still,
You're gonna do the coordination, George?
Yes.
Okay, fine.
so we did receive this or not?
Yes.
We have 2 Saturdays before the 18th. You want to just pick a Saturday right now?
How about New Year's Eve?
We want to touch base with the other affected property owner, make sure
Yeah.
that he's available.
If you-
Also, you're, either of the 2 Saturdays are okay with you, you're saying? Okay.
Okay,
The 6th to the 13th.
Beautiful.
Good.
yep. Okay. We did vote on this, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
We're all good.
All right, moving on to subdivision, Sunset Creek Development, map 46 lot, 77 zone, R1 of application for a 3-lot subdivision.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Mr.
Will you do the
Chairman,
bills?
Make a motion to pay short publisher 141.68.
Would you, don't show some, Joe, aren't you gonna show some disgust with
You
the
know,
expense of the?
our taxes are so high because we do this, but it's because the state requires us to publish it. We could do it online and get broader coverage, but the publishing lobby in Hartford manages to make sure that we have to keep doing this. It's a shame, but we'll waste our tax dollars, we're complying with the law. So I make a motion
Okay.
to pay it.
All in favor of paying the bill, say aye.
Mr.
Thank
Chairman,
you.
I'm aware there's a problem with the minutes. Mr. Wallace has a revision he wants to make.
We've already fixed it.
The one I went
Yeah,
down
when
to.
you print it out.
She already corrected it.
Take care of it.
Good. So I make a motion, we approve the minutes because aside from that one difference, everything looked right.
Okay, all right, somebody second that, please?
I'm off on this one.
Okay. Okay, so,
All of us that were here in favor.
all of us were, raise your hand. You, I think, George, you were here, right?
George wasn't here.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
unless
please.
There's no more business before the commission, I make a motion that we close the meeting.
thank you.
Second.
All in favor? Merry Christmas, everybody. Ho, 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 ho. Happy Hanukkah.